Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's ASHRA webinar, Table Stakes, Smart Recognition for Engaging Healthcare Talent. Today's webinar is generously sponsored by Bucketlist, and on behalf of ASHRA, I would like to thank Bucketlist for bringing this valuable content to the healthcare HR field. If you have questions during today's presentation, please put them into the chat or Q&A box, and we will go over them at the end. I would now like to pass this webinar over to the CEO and co-founder of Bucketlist, Jason Lindstrom. Welcome, Jason. You may now begin.
Thank you, Mary. I'm so excited to be here today. We have, I think, what will be a very informative and action-packed session. We're going to be talking about smart recognition for engaging healthcare talent. I'd love to take a few moments to introduce the panelists.
Hi, everyone.
I'm going to briefly introduce myself. I'm Jason Lindstrom. As mentioned, I'm the CEO over at Bucketlist Rewards. Something I'm incredibly passionate about is helping organizations build high performance and engaged cultures. And I've had a chance to meet with Nicole and Cheryl a little bit. They're super knowledgeable and they have a ton of stories and wisdom to share with you today. And why don't I turn it over to Nicole first to introduce herself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Schell-Dreyer, and I am coming to this webinar today with a few different backgrounds. I've been a healthcare HR practitioner for over 20 years. I currently serve as the Vice President of Total Rewards for UCHealth out of Denver. And then I'm also the current 2025 ASHRA Board President.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us today. And Cheryl, would you be kind enough to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl Janssen, and I currently serve as the Director of People Engagement for Schlegel Villages. Schlegel Villages is a family-owned and operated seniors living company that has 18 retirement and long-term care homes across the province of Ontario in Canada. So I'm coming to you live from Canada today. We provide care and services for over 5,000 seniors, and we have around 6,500 amazing caregivers as well. So I come with some interesting experience as well. I worked first as a nurse and then moved into nursing leadership roles and then general management. And I have enjoyed a shift into HR for the past 4 years. In my role, which focuses on people engagement. So I support the total reward strategy for the organization with a focus on team member well-being and employee relations. And I'm excited to be here with you all today.
Yeah, awesome, Cheryl. Thank you so much for that introduction. And it's always exciting chatting with people who are able to wear both the HR hat and also have come from a bit of a practitioner background as well. So looking forward to having you share your experiences shortly. I'm going to jump over to the agenda. So there's a few different topics we're going to be reviewing today. We're going to talk about how employee recognition impacts culture and engagement in healthcare specifically. There's going to be some pretty cool stories on how to build an impactful program. And we're also going to be sharing some effective award ideas. And I've had a chance to, or the panelists have had a chance to introduce themselves. There is another very important participant in this conversation, which is you, the attendees. We love your participation as we go through today's session. So please feel free to put your questions and comments in the webinar chat window. And as we're kind of getting things spun up here, I'd actually love for people who've dialed in, the attendees, maybe just briefly introduce yourself in the chat window, say where you're from as we're to kick things off. Sidebar, I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia. And maybe Nicole and Cheryl, would you mind sharing where you're dialing in from?
I'm dialing in from Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. Thank you so much. And Cheryl, I know you said it earlier, but
Yeah, I'm coming to you live from Kitchener-Waterloo, which is in the province of Ontario in Canada.
amazing. Thank you, team. Awesome. I can see a bunch of participation blowing up in the chat window. So Tammy, thank you for dialing in. Ava, Lindsay from New Mexico, Melissa from Florida, Jessica from Michigan. Awesome. It's like a really lovely cross section. Oh, Nicole from Alberta, Canada. Yeah, we got North America covered off. We got it checked off. Aaron from Hamilton, Ontario. Aaron, good to see you, my man. Some regulars have joined us today as well. Okay, fantastic. Cool. So we're going to jump into the first poll question. And Mary, if you wouldn't mind launching that now. So in the spirit of participation, we'd love to get your feedback and answers to these two questions. And we're going to be able to take this information and we're going to be able to use it to guide today's conversation. So the two questions are, the first question is, what areas of employee recognition do you need support with? And you'll see a variety of checkboxes you can check off. And then the second question is, how does your organization currently approach employee recognition? And again, a couple of options available to you. So we'll let that run for a few more moments. And then maybe we can close that poll off. Thank you. And Mary, you're already one step ahead of us. Thank you. And I'm seeing the results. Oh, cool. So just to confirm, Nicole and Cheryl, can you see those results on screen as well?
Yes.
Fantastic. So I'd love to invite your comments on this in just a moment. But for the first question, what areas of employee recognition do you need support with? It looks like the first one, increasing participation from the team. Yeah, that is one of the bigger issues people are facing. And so Nicole and Cheryl, as we're going through today's conversation, I suspect you might have some pretty good insights on this.
Yep, there are no surprises on that screen. There should have been a button for all of the above.
I agree.
Agreed. Awesome. And then looking at question number 2, how does your organization currently approach employee recognition? There's a few options there as well. And it looks like the first answer, we have a structured company-wide recognition program. Roughly 65% of people answered with that as well. So again, you know what's cool? Even if you already have a structured recognition program in place, I suspect there's all sorts of tweaks, tactics, and ideas that Cheryl and Nicole will be able to share with you today. Awesome. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll unless there's any other further questions from Cheryl or Nicole. Amazing. Thank you, Mary. It was great. And going to close down and stop screen sharing so we can really listen to the answers of our panelists here. And at this point, we're going to switch into some questions. So I thought we could start off by talking about the importance of recognition in healthcare. And the first question I'd love to start off with is, why does recognition matter so much in healthcare? And how does it build interpersonal connections between staff? And Cheryl, maybe I can pass that one to you first.
Yeah. It's a great question. I've been working in healthcare since I was 15 years old. I actually was planning on being a lawyer. And back in the day, I don't know if anyone remembers silver jeans or manager jeans, and they were kind of expensive. And so my parents said, Cheryl, go get a job so you can pay for your own expensive jeans. And so I started working as a dietary aide, and that's what led into my my love of healthcare and nursing. So I feel like I've been in the trenches since I was, I'm young enough, old enough to understand what that meant. And yeah, I don't think I also need to explain to this group how taxing working in healthcare can be. Frontline team members and leaders, they work hard. I mean, they're selflessly caring for others day in and day out, and we know that can lead to burnout. There's a phrase that we often refer to, moral injury and moral distress. So, you're working really hard to do what you think is right, but it's not always very easy. And so our team often feel like they want to do more, they could do more. And we really feel that recognition is just a really important and essential part of ensuring that our team know, mentally, but also they can feel deeply that what they do matters and that we're grateful for what they do. There's a phrase that we often refer to here at Schlegel Villages, which is I am because we are. And it's a core philosophy of something called Ubuntu, which is a Southern African concept that talks about, interconnectedness and shared humanity. And we really feel it's a call to respect the worth and value of every person and to act in ways that, benefit the collective. And so recognition is a key piece of that. It's recognizing you, this is who you are. And so, expressing that is important for caregivers that are pouring selflessly all day, every day.
Yeah, fantastic insight. I love that. And sidebar, as you're going through your answers, you're getting some shout outs about silver jeans. So clearly you're connecting with some of the audience members there. But I love the idea of creating the connectiveness inside of Schlegel Villages. But I'd love to also invite Nicole to share her take on this as well.
I would echo many of the things that Cheryl mentioned there, really, that recognition is an essential component of the work that we do. It really reinforces that purpose and supports retention, the team cohesion. And then when you go into the combating burnout or promoting high quality care and strengthens alignments with your organizational values, it all comes together and it circles around, how do we support one another so that we can give the best care possible, whether you're in a direct care facing role or you're on a support services end, in an HR function or in an IT or a finance function. It's really that connection to the organizational value. I'd also say that it builds those interpersonal connections by helping your teammates feel seen and heard and trusted and respected. So it's building that culture, or that environment of mutual respect is something that we call it here at UCHealth. And how we treat each other within our walls really emanates to our patient population. And then you get that bidirectional relationship that's so integral to giving good care.
Yeah, great example. Thanks for that, Nicole. I think it was Richard Branson who said, if you take care of your people will then take care of the clients, or in this case, patients. Great insight. Thank you. And maybe to kind of build off of that, and this question can be for Nicole. Can you share a story of how recognition has positively impacted somebody at your organization?
This was a hard one to come up with just one, because there
Oh,
are so many. I think one of my two, I'm going to go with two because I can't just pick one. My first favorite is we had a caregiver or an employee who just celebrated 50 years of
mm,
taking care of improving lives. 50 years. There's not too many people that can say they've worked for the same employer, albeit in different roles, but that particular employee, we were able to celebrate her through something that we call You Make Extraordinary Possible. In
mm.
her story and her passion and her reflections on the evolution of healthcare. When she started, she said how you could smoke cigarettes in the clinic office building, if that, dates it at all. But really, the organization was able to rally around this individual who's been a tremendous icon of the organization for so many years, and celebrate with her fellow colleagues, with her friends, and with her family. So that was a super exciting one. And then also last week, I had the opportunity to support one of our employees who's embarked on an education journey. She started at the organization, attended some schooling, promoted into another position. And just last week, she was able to tell her story on how she was working so hard to better herself and the life of her 12-year-old son by continuing to go through that. So recognizing her efforts, it was a true pleasure to be there in the audience as she shared her story with 1,000 people, to say this is how we do things. So recognition has all kinds of different ways and forms, but those are two examples on how the employees really were able to shine in the most authentic way.
That's awesome. And such powerful examples. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nicole. Um, I know a lot of us come to these sessions to hear stories similar to that, and maybe to build off that a little bit. Cheryl, do you have some examples or stories you might be able to share as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, Nicole, that you brought up the education and the growth piece. We have an organizational goal to grow 7 out of 10 leaders from within, which is it's a big goal, but a big growth goal, but it does help to keep our culture alive. But we often say that growth isn't always about titles as well, and it's about an opportunity to lean into your strength. We're a Gallup strength organization as well, so we lean into that quite a bit. We recently had a leadership conference, and we had a panel of team members who spoke about recognition and their coaching experiences in the organization. So the theme of our leadership conference was, the impact of coaching. And one of our housekeeping team members, Hilda, who's been with us for over 10 years, was on the panel. And she spoke about the impact of recognition at her village on her life. So Hilda started off as a volunteer. She was leading musical programs. She was a former musical performer. Coincidentally, her daughter was also working for us as a nurse. And so Hilda, loved the residents. So she joined us as a housekeeper and was a complete and total rock star. So her general manager sat her down one day, and other, village leaders in the village had kind of recognized her ability to informally lead and influence team, and spoke words of encouragement and positivity into her. And she won our Connect the Dots award. So the Connect the Dots program at Schlegel Villages is our customer service program. And she was nominated by her fellow team members for her excellent customer service. And part of her growth was being able to then train our team members and leaders on our Connect the Dots program. So, they see these strengths in her, not necessarily giving her growth. She didn't desire growth into a leadership role, but leaning into those strengths. And so those touch points, those one-to-one conversations, asking someone how you do want to grow, what does that look like for you? This is how I appreciate you. She was moved to tears, by this recognition on the panel. She never dreamed, coming to Canada, that she would be making a difference every day, and she really attributes that to the recognition that she'd received. So it was a beautiful moment just to see her, stepping into her strengths and the recognition she got from that.
Yeah, fantastic. It's a great story and another really good example. And what I also heard you say is a move to tears. And Nicole, I don't know if you've experienced that as well, but with recognition programs, I've seen that play out a bunch of times in a really healthy way where people are just like really touched by what's being said. Years ago, I was helping to launch a program down in Pennsylvania, and we always invite senior leaders to recognize staff. And the CEO was recognizing different staff members around the room, and this one woman started to cry. And I approached her afterwards, like, hey, are you okay? I noticed you looked a little upset. And she's like, listen, I've been working here for 7 years, and that was the first time somebody told me thank you, and it really appreciated me for my work. And like I found that moving too. I was like, this is so cool, right? Like this lifted her up. She felt seen. But I also feel like there's a bit of a message out there for what I've often seen is almost many organizations have these great people, these great staff members who fly under the radar and who may not be seen unless, like you, Cheryl, or you, Nicole, they've rolled out a great recognition program to take care of them. So awesome stories. Thank you so much. Um, Cool. I thought we could transition a little bit and talk a little bit more about how to build an impactful program. You've both shared some cool ideas about different reward and recognition strategies already, so I'm keen to go deeper, to dig a little bit deeper. And so for the next question, maybe Cheryl, could you share some stories on what your recognition program looks like, and what was your journey getting to this point?
Yeah, happy to share about our journey. And I had a prop that I left at home. I was going to show you what our little booklet program looked like prior the program we have today. So you'll have to just visualize it along with me. Our recognition program has always been based on recognizing culturally aligned behaviors. So the customer service credo. So when team would exhibit one of those parts of our customer service credo or one of those behaviors, then they would get points. So for over 10 years or so, we had a paper booklet that we called a passport to success. So literally the size of a passport. And every time a team member would complete, one of those actions like, attend an in-service on their own time, or if they had to work short, or if they completed a survey, for example, they would have to give their physical booklet to their leader to give them the points. And then once they had accumulated 100 points, they could redeem it for $100 through payroll. So very simple. It was a great program, but it was clunky. So, think about it. Team lose their books. They forget to bring them in. They can't find their leader to give them their points. And they also had to wait till they had accumulated a certain number of points to be able to redeem them. And basically, it was a time-consuming process that took a lot of time out of the day for both the team and the leaders, kind of chasing each other around, trying to get these books filled out. So the other thing, and if some of you on the call have multiple locations in your organization, sometimes consistency across the different locations can be a challenge. So we didn't have consistency with how we were approaching anniversaries, birthdays, some consistency, of course, in the program, but we knew there was opportunity. So we wanted a system that would allow us to automate as much as we could so that we could consistently recognize those important milestones like anniversaries. The other thing, of course, is choice. So having the autonomy to be able to take what you've earned, right? Your hard work, and for us, being culturally aligned, and have different options for how to redeem those points was really important to us. And then also, of course, the ability to have the recognition be personalized. Sometimes, you're running through the hallway, you throw your book at your leader and say, I need my 5 points for working short, or whatever it was, isn't necessarily a meaningful moment. So we did end up going to RFP, and here we are today. We are proud to partnered with Bucketlist for our rewards and recognition program, and it's been able to meet our needs. And so I would say going through that process of understanding the barriers for both team and leaders, and dreaming big was a huge part of getting us to where we are today. Was kind of thinking outside of the box and what was going to be meaningful for our folks.
Yeah, awesome, Cheryl. Thank you. I really liked how you talked about the manual system and how there was like some elements of success there, and then how you transitioned to this new paradigm and kind of what that looked like. And also, 'cause it's the reason I mentioned that, or maybe call it out, is I don't think you're alone in that. I bet you a lot of the attendees who don't have a program in place, the stat I read from SHRM is roughly 80% of organizations have a recognition program, but the majority of times is manual. And so it's probably inspiring for them to hear what it can look like shifting from like a paper-based system into a new format. Um, and Nicole, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one as well. If you could share a bit of your story on getting to this point as well.
Yeah. So we are a large health system. We're about 37,000 employees now. So we're long past the manual days, thank goodness. And this is really a space, the recognition space is one that it's, full of fantastic vendors, obviously Bucketlist being today's sponsor, being one of them. Our organization uses a different vendor, not on the webinar here today, but we've had some extreme successes as well. And similar to what Cheryl mentioned is that our recognition program is rooted in our values. And our values are patients first, integrity, and excellence. So it's pretty darn natural to build off of those things when you start to think about recognition. So our internal brand is called Recognizing You. Pretty straightforward, and folks know what that means. And it has a number of different flavors that go along with it. You can send just a simple card to say, have a nice day to somebody if they need a little pick me up. And, even as a recipient of those, some days you get one and you're just like, gosh, that was really nice. It was just an out of the blue, somebody was thinking about you. There's also the leader to employee points component, where if you have something you'd like to recognize folks on, you can allot a certain amount of points tied to one of those values that I mentioned, and employees can earn or accumulate those points and then go shopping, which there's lots of good things in our catalog of options that people really enjoy. And then there's also things that go into nominating colleagues for awards. The system also is our kind of administrator, if you will, for our holiday gift. So something that goes out to a number of, basically all of the employees throughout the organization at the holiday time. You get your choice of a couple of options, and it's all kind of administered through the recognition platform. And then there are also things that extend beyond the platform itself. And I think it's worth calling those out. And Cheryl actually mentioned some of that before, is having a recognition platform is so important, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. And that's where teammates or leaders really embracing just that connectivity at the really local level is what we're trying to empower teams and employees to see, because there are things that we can do at the macro level, but how I'm treated and how I feel each and every day going into my workspace is probably more important. So we really try to impose on folks that's let's not lose sight of those things, especially when we're busy and we have a million things going on, kind of that take pause and be thankful for all of the great work that is done.
Yeah, great example. And I loved how you called out both like what can happen on the platform, but also in the real world, like how does recognition show up? Um, is it possible to share any more examples of how this might show up in the real world? Like, are there For example, some organizations will like in their daily shift huddles, they'll have staff recognize each other for good work. Or Nicole, is there anything that comes to mind when you think about how this shows up in the real world?
A few different ones that come up or come to mind for me are I used to support clinics in a role prior to the one that I'm in, and they used to have the fun club or the recognition and birthday club. So it
Yeah.
was members who had almost self-selected or been, volunteered within their work area to put together the fun, and that was typically how they celebrated babies or birthdays or anniversaries and things like that in the most organic way possible. Other ways are simply just to ask the team. I
Yeah.
think, asking people how they would like to be recognized cannot be understated. I know even with the team that I serve right now, there's a couple that they would love balloons and streamers and the whole works. And there are others that are like, if you do that to me, I will hide under my desk and I'm not coming. So, being mindful of how people like to be recognized and meeting them where they are, whether it's the big splashy stuff or if it's just a simple thank you.
Yeah. I, Nicole, such a good call out. And for those of you who don't have a recognition program, as Nicole just said, some people love public recognition, others like private recognition. I have absolutely made the mistake of recognizing a massive introvert. It was really embarrassing for them. They took a mental health. I did it at a company retreat. Of all people, like I should know better. I did it at a company retreat, and they took a mental wellness day the day after.
Oh
They're
no.
a lovely software engineer, and anywho, you gotta, as Nicole just said, you gotta be sure to understand, meet people where they're at. And Sidebar Fun Club, that's pretty cool. That sounds like a fun group to be a part of. So thank you, Nicole. Really great experiences to share with the group today. Um, cool. So I'm gonna keep moving along to our next question here. And I'd love to ask, how can we ensure that recognition resonates across diverse roles, backgrounds, and generations? And Nicole, maybe you could carry on with your line of thinking here.
Yeah. Really, four things come to mind. And to piggyback off of my last sentiments is number one, ask. Ask people what is meaningful for them. And then tie it back to the mission of your organization. Both Cheryl and I have mentioned how important it is to really tie things back to the mission of the organization. Be willing to try things and recognize that, it may not work. And if it doesn't work, regroup, try again. And then tell stories.
Mm,
Jason's been trying to pull stories out from us, and that's a space that we as an organization are working tremendously hard on right now. Is let's tell the great stories that we have, whether it's just what we do, because sometimes people they'll say we want to recognize you, and they'll say I was just doing my job. But how do we tell the stories so that people feel like they're being recognized in whatever way is meaningful for them, and cascade those stories throughout the organization or the business unit or whatever your space happens to be.
super cool, Nicole. Super cool. The tying to mission and the telling of stories. Um, I feel like the storytelling, what we sometimes call that is like you create heroes inside of your own organization. You create these myths inside your own organization and aspirationally give something for the rest of the team to look up to and maybe to follow in. And I've read a lot of books about human psychology and human nature. And I think that's fundamentally how a lot of us learn. We learn through modeling, right? It starts when you're a young kid. And even as an adult, like sometimes you have a great leader, you see how they lead well, and you're able to emulate those sorts of things. And so the storytelling is such a powerful way to build a great culture. So thanks for the insights. Cheryl, could I ask your thoughts on this question?
Yeah. It's interesting, from a storytelling perspective, when I talked about Hilda and our goal of, growing 7 out of 10 leaders from within, but, growth can look different, doesn't always need to necessarily be about title. And then tying that back into recognition. Every year at our conferences, we work really hard to highlight the growth of our leaders and our team members as well. So we do something called Stories of Growth. And we will interview folks, across the organization that have had really great growth stories. The housekeeper that became a general manager, the student that became, a VP. Our COO actually started off with our organization as a landscaper and is now the COO. So, which is very cool. And I think that recognition, Jason, to your point, when you can see yourself growing and developing and having opportunities, through someone else's story of growth, I think that recognition is key. And just the pride of people across the organization, being excited for someone at their location to be highlighted as a story of growth is huge. But often what comes out of those stories of growth is people talking about the ways that they had been recognized and the impact that had on them. So I think I would add that as something cool organizations could look at to do. I also think there are so many opportunities in healthcare to be cross-functional. As someone who worked as a dietary aide and a nurse and in different leadership roles, I think recognition can be that way as well. As leaders, could you challenge other leaders to recognize someone from another department, let's say 3 times a week, like not just your department, but someone else's department? And I think once you start looking cross-functionally and you start to recognize kind of across party lines or across silos, you remove those barriers, and then you're that much better poised to focus on what unites us as opposed to what makes us different. And I think it's really important that starts with leaders, kind of being the example. To your point, Jason, could be in a good way, or maybe in a way that someone needs to take a mental health day the next day. That's okay, but you got to try, right? It's important to try. So yeah, I think that cross-functional approach to recognition is really important.
And Jason, if you don't mind, I'd piggyback on one of the things that Cheryl said is that manager competition, enticement, encouragement, that goes a really long way. For the last couple of years, we've been doing something called the 100% Club. So if you as a leader distribute all of your points in a quarter and you do it consistently throughout the year, then you're actually, eligible for something that's, some UCHealth swag or something like that. That's a way to encourage that participation. And it's also, we're seeing some good trending as far as increased utilization across departments as well.
Awesome. So we have the 100% Club from Nicole. We have the cross-functional breaking down of silos from Cheryl. That's awesome, team. I love both of those examples. We're going to switch topics now and get into a kind of a fun area that I know is really popular, I bet you, with a lot of the attendees here today. And I'd love to get your guys' thoughts, maybe Cheryl first. What are some budget-friendly ways to enhance a recognition program in healthcare?
Yes, we're all, tied to budgets and funding from governments, and that I'm sure is different wherever each person is located here. So I talked about the fact that we have our online program, which we call the Success Spot, where our customer service dots are recognized. We also have a board version of this, which is called Spot the Dot. So again, we love our acronyms. I think every organization does. So, it's very branded, of course. So the Spot the Dot boards are located in high traffic areas of our villages or up on the neighborhoods, which, we might call a unit. And that's where our residents, family, and team can grab like a special sticky note. It's branded to the dot that they experienced or witnessed, and they can make a note of appreciation right up on that board. So cost super minimal. It's, a corrugated branded board, a branded sticky note. You wouldn't even need to do that necessarily. You could just, put something up like that. And then encouraging participation and then highlighting the dots on the board. It costs nothing, right? You're at a team huddle or shift changeover. Hey, everyone, before you leave today, spot a dot, go put something up on the board. So I find it's also a really great way to involve the residents and families, and it makes that recognition even more meaningful. I think team to team is really important, but when a resident or their family member recognizes you for going above and beyond, I mean, that's where the magic is. That's one, budget friendly thing that we've done. Another thing that we've done is we're tied to a research institute for aging here in Canada, in Ontario. And so we are big on innovation and, kind of blowing things up. So we run a yearly team member innovation challenge where we put out an HR or people-focused opportunity. And then we ask our team members to submit a plan of action to solve this problem or opportunity. So they work on this in their unit over the course of kind of 6 months, and then they present it to our innovation team at our innovation conference, their results. So this year's Team Member Innovation Challenge is how can you spark moments of joy and connection on the neighborhood? Spark moments of joy on the neighborhood to create a sense of connection. We've got a ton of great submissions and great ideas. And again, it can be very budget friendly. Some of the ideas that came in are things that Nicole had mentioned, recognition or special quotes being pulled out of a jar, or maybe it's a team member craft activity for 5 minutes or a yoga stretch break. But often I think as leaders we feel like we have to have all the ideas, but when you put it back to the team and say, hey, what are your ideas? How do you think we could recognize, appreciate, build relationships, connection and belonging? The ideas are always incredible. It's our second year. I'm really excited about that. So it's 2 ideas I would have that are quite budget friendly.
Yeah, those are awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. Loads of good insights there. Thank you for sharing all that. And Nicole, could you maybe build off that a little bit from your perspective as well? I'd love to hear your insights.
Yeah, and I think in the acute care hospital or clinic environment, many of the similar things can work as well. So for, huddles in particular, the verbal recognition or huddle boards are very common in our locations. And I'm seeing a note here in the chat about recognition programs and not limiting them just to high performance employees. I think that's really where that really local recognition comes in, or that peer-to-peer, hey, thanks for helping me, get unburied from the last week's chaos. So that's where we put emphasis on that peer-to-peer, because sometimes those are the things that as a leader you may or may not see.
Absolutely. So we got a bunch of very cool budget-friendly ideas, and I also really liked how you shared ideas that were friendly to frontline staff, because not everybody's going to be on their phone or in front of a computer. But the spot the dots idea, the daily huddles, that's really cool, talking about how to make these programs come alive in these environments where not everybody's in front of technology. I'm going to kind of keep moving along here and talk about the awards side of things. So, what are some of the awards that resonate with your staff? Nicole, any insights on that?
Yeah, we have 2 that come to mind in that space. And the first one is our branded one called Celebrating You. And that's where employees can nominate a peer or colleague in a very authentic way and the premise is, how did your colleague improve lives and or go above and beyond for a patient or a fellow staff member here at UCHealth. So that's a very powerful one. And the stories behind that, they go through a nomination and an awards process, and then they certainly get recognized at a higher level if they're selected for that particular award. And then similar to many other healthcare organizations, we do participate in the DAISY Award. So that's where the patient experience side of things comes in for nurses who consistently demonstrate excellence through their clinical experience and expertise.
Awesome. Celebrating You, the Daisy Awards, great. Both fantastic examples. And Cheryl, any kind of insights you'd like to build off of that?
Yeah, the one that came to mind was very similar to Nicole. So it's, our customer credo awards, and they're nominated by, team residents, family members, and the team members that win these awards every year, just they feel truly honored because they know, again, it was a nomination system. The residents are involved, families are involved. And what we do with those 5 Success Award winners from each of our locations is that they come to our annual operational planning conference that we hold over a 3-day period. They come for 2 days, and they have lunch with the CEO. It's a
Mm.
special lunch. They're specially recognized for winning that award. And then we also, throughout the year, will pull those award winners into working groups. So if we have something, again, we're not, working outside of the union, if you will, but if there's ideas that, or if there's issues that we need some ideas on or feedback, they're keepers of the culture. So they really give us those good insights. And so, that award really resonates with them because it's not just the award, it's not just one kind of place and time. It kind of morphs into something bigger for them, and their name goes up on a board in their village, and so it's very exciting for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. And I see a couple of comments jumping up in the chat window. So Samantha was sharing how they have a high five program. It's a peer-to-peer program that allows department to department recognition. And indeed, that's a great initiative. So thanks for sharing that, Samantha.
And Jason,
And
on that
yeah,
one, I
please.
would add that ability to post for your organization to see a lot of the platforms. Either you can put it public or you can do it private, and certainly both options are wonderful. Going back to meeting people how they are, or recognizing people how they are, but that the board, we have one where we can go out and see who's been recognized by their peers at any given time. And if a person were having a bad day, all you need to do is spend 3 minutes out there reading the stories of all the great things that people put in there, because it's pretty phenomenal about that peer-to-peer and keeping it public for a time so that it can be shared.
Yeah. Nicole, great insight. I've talked to a lot of leaders and senior leaders who do a similar sort of thing where they'll take the time to browse through a peer recognition board. They'll take the time to watch for the interdepartmental recognitions, and they're given all sorts of insights as to all the good stuff happening in their organization. I worked with one very large, very senior executive, C-level executive, and he's like, not until we saw this program get rolled out was I actually aware of all the amazing work happening on a day-to-day basis. And Nicole, to your exact point, they're like, I love looking at it each day because it puts a smile on my face, and it's like it's a great way to start a day or an end of day. He's like, I love this team. So, anyways, you're 100% right, Nicole. Thanks for sharing that sentiment. Um, Kind of on the topic of awards and maybe rewards and doing things on a budget. Cheryl, you just mentioned the idea of doing like lunch with the CEO. Are there any kind of other popular low cost, no cost reward ideas, either from yourself, Cheryl, or maybe Nicole, that you might be able to share with this group? Because I know that's often a very popular topic. And the reason, and I'm going to say a few more words to give you a moment to think of an answer. Um, a lot of times we chat with folks and they're like, listen, we 100% are aligned around rolling out a recognition program. They're like, how do we mitigate the costs of the reward side of things? Are there low cost, no cost options we could consider when implementing a program like this? And lunch with the CEO is one example, but I suspect you might both share a couple of more examples. So, either Cheryl or Nicole, if you wanted to dig a little bit deeper on this one.
Who wants to go first? You want to go first, Nicole?
Sure. One of the things that I would put out there is leader rounding, or rounding with purpose.
Mm.
Because the recognition and not just going out to say, hey, how's it going today, but really going out with purpose, to say, what are 3 things that went well today, or what is one thing that I can help you with. That was actually something that with our director of workplace well-being we were talking about yesterday. So going out and specifically saying, what are the 3 good things, and what is the one thing that I can help you with, helps to recognize the work that's being done and the emotion and the sentiment that's going on. And with leader rounding, sometimes people have treats, or sometimes swag goes a long way, but that's not an always. A lot of times it's just simply get out, take the time to do it with purpose and do it with intention.
Oh, Nicole is so good again. And I love the specificity. It's not just like you say, just walking around, giving people like highlighting 3 good things and something I can help with. That's really neat. The idea of like leadership, the idea of servant leadership, like how can you lean in and help out your people around you? Such a good example. Thank you. Cheryl, do you want to add any further comments on that
Yeah.
one?
Well, I was going to say something similar, so I had a backup. So we do something called Walk a Miles, And for the leaders in our organization, right up to our CEO, our support office team, every year we're responsible for doing 2 or 3 walk a miles with our team members. And so basically, walking a mile, literally what it means. So you're spending the day with that team member, a frontline team member, understanding what their world looks like, what are the barriers that exist in their job, what are things that they're proud of, and from a systems perspective, you get a really good understanding of some of those the pieces of the puzzle that go together. I would also say for us something that we have found really important and impactful, and it's part of our culture. We are a serving leadership organization, so we believe in the inverted pyramid. When I go into one of our villages, which is usually a couple times a week, I don't dress in business wear. I am wearing a Schlegel polo. I'm wearing a uniform that our team members would wear, so that because I am a team member, I am not a support officer. I'm not HR. I am a team member, and so when I do come in, I'm supporting. I'm helping. If a resident needs help with something, if coffees need to be poured in the dining room, and I think for the team members, that goes a long way. To Nicole's point of just you being present, that presence is important, and engagement.
You both, Cheryl, Nicole, you both paint an awesome picture of corporate cultures. I'd love to come visit you both sometime just to
You're
soak
welcome.
in the cultures that you've built. This sounds awesome, and congrats to that. Um, I'm gonna kind of keep moving along to talk a little bit about measurement. So, what are some good goals to measure when it comes to a recognition program? Cheryl, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I pulled some stats in preparation for this. I won't get too heavy into stats, but I would say kind of 4 things come to mind. Our engagement survey gives us really great feedback. So an annual engagement survey, the dollars spent.
Yeah.
If you're spending more and more dollars on your program, it's working because people are engaged. So that's huge for us. Engagement in the platform. So, through our current platform, understanding how, what percentage of our organization is engaged. And I always say noise and feedback. If people are complaining or you're hearing things, it's anecdotal, but, I always love it when a team member comes up and says, "Hey, you're the person that's in charge of the success bot, right? Yes, I've got feedback for you. Amazing. Let's sit down. Let's chat." So we monitor our overall engagement survey results. In 2023, we were at 82% overall engagement. This past year in 2024, we were at 85%. So we'd had a full year of having the Bucketlist platform at that point. The other one that I'm sorry, just my stats here. So I feel recognized for the work that I do. That's an important question that we ask our team members. In 2023, our average response was 4.6 out of 6. And this past year, that bumped up to 4.8 out of 6. And we ask, how do you like to be recognized? And tons of different, great comments about points in our rewards platform and, just that peer-to-peer, leader-to-team member, in-person recognition. So I would say, focusing on those 4 areas, survey, dollars, engagement in the platform, noise and feedback would be important.
Yeah, awesome examples, and thanks for sharing those insights, Cheryl. And having talked to a bunch of other HR leaders, those metrics matter to them as well. So it's cool hearing the before and after story, and also it's great to know that those matter to you, and even to hear your story on how you keep track of those. So thank you for that. Nicole, anything kind of further you might want to add on the topic?
No, I would echo, or I say no and then I start talking. Cheryl covered most of them well. The one thing that I would say is if you're using your employee engagement survey, which is a fantastic tool, be mindful of how you're asking the question. We've actually reformatted ours over time. And our current question is, when I do an excellent job, my accomplishments are recognized, which is a little different flavor than, do you feel recognized and that sort of thing. So just really being mindful from the employee engagement survey perspective of how you're asking the question so that the results are more actionable and you can, really hone in on your action plans with your leaders.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. And as we're chatting away here, I saw a couple more comments pop up in the chat window that I just wanted to highlight. One that I thought was relevant, and Nicole and Cheryl, please feel free to share your insights on this. The first comment was from Larry. He had mentioned at his organization's leaders were uncomfortable because they didn't know how to recognize this, the staff. A really good observation. Some people I find are natural cheerleaders. They instantly know how to run with recognition. They just were brought up that way. Other people needed just a little bit of support, and training never hurts. So maybe I'd love to hear Nicole's and Cheryl's insight on this topic. But Larry, thanks for highlighting that because you're right. Some people do need support in this area. But
Yeah,
go ahead, Nicole.
it's very true that some people this comes natural and some it comes as a struggle. So a little bit of training or even a little bit of challenge to a leader to say, in the course of a week, is there one person or three people that you could recognize that you don't do today? Take the baby steps to ingrain it into habit. Or like some of the platforms have where you can send birthday cards and things like that. A lot of them you can take a few minutes out of your time and date stamp them. So you get a list of your employees that says, you know, there are 6 birthdays in May. You can spend a few minutes and send the messages all at one time. So it's kind of some of that low-hanging fruit, if you will. Or if you don't have a platform today, there is immense power in a paper thank you card or a paper note that says, you did a really great job at leading that, project work team, or you're really just excelling at the work as an individual contributor.
Awesome shares. Thank you, Nicole. Um, and Ava, sorry, jumped in the chat window, jokingly said, "Paper cards, they still exist?" Smiley face. So yeah, they do. And indeed, they're super impactful still. My grandma still sends me birthday cards. I love them. They're so cute. I get my little $5 bill in there. Anywho, um, Cheryl, do you have anything further you'd like to add on that?
Not really. I would say we've encouraged our leaders to do recognition in the moment as much as they can. And to Larry's point, it is difficult if you don't have the words to say, but sometimes in that moment when you're actually witnessing what's happened, we call that like a run towards the vomit moment, right? You feel like, oh, okay, this makes me feel a little bit nervous. I'm going to do it. You kind of have to lean in when you feel that way. And, the behavior or whatever's happened is right in front of you. So you can say it in that moment, like, hey, the way that you helped Mrs. Jones there, get to the dining room, just thank you so much. That really means a lot that you supported her that way or whatever it is. So you're just saying what you saw and with a thank you.
Yeah, I love Cheryl. I certainly do love your acronyms and the things and the positionings. No, I do. And honestly, Nicole and Cheryl, I've been kind of lightly taking notes as we go through today. I've got a ton of actionable tips. It's funny. My favorite sessions are those where I can attend and I can walk away with like hopefully 1 to 3 things I can implement today. And I have this like list of 10 things that I've jotted down. So I think you're both providing just a ton of wisdom and insight. I know we're kind of creeping up on time, and I'm going to switch gears here. I'm going to start moving towards a little bit of wrap up and a little bit of housekeeping before we adjourn for the day. I'm going to briefly share my screen again. Just give me a moment. And as I'm doing this, maybe I'd love to hear from the attendees on today's call. Is there a favorite tip you've heard from today? Any sort of actionable advice that you really like? Feel free to throw that in the webinar chat window. Or conversely, is there something that you're doing in your organization that you love to share with the group and share the wisdom back? So you can recognize one of the panelists in the spirit of recognition, or alternatively, if you wanted to share a wisdom or a piece of advice, please feel free to do so. I know there's hundreds of people who registered, and we can all learn from one another. So feel free to type that in the chat window. And maybe Cheryl and Nicole, if you're okay, would you be okay maybe sharing one of your favorite tips or takeaways from today? I'll give you a moment to think about that. And Cheryl, anything stand out to you today?
I would say there isn't really one silver bullet when it comes to recognition. In my mind, I kind of see it as, you're encouraging cross-functional appreciation, daily practices that reward culturally reinforcing behaviors. And I would say involving your customer, your client is so important. It's so meaningful and so impactful, especially in healthcare. Those that we serve, appreciating us, not that that's why we're doing it, but it helps us align our purpose. And I think that's really, really important. So maybe a use another acronym there for you, a three-legged stool there, cross-functional approach, daily practices and involving the customer and client.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you, Cheryl. And again, just keep rolling with those acronyms. It's so sticky. It's so sticky. Nicole, do you have something you'd like to share? And I see a bunch of comments starting to pour in as well. So
Yeah, I really think it boils down to knowing your organization. There are some things that work within one organization or one pocket of an organization, and there are things that don't. And just really, even in large systems, or large organizations, recognizing that. An example of just something that we do that highlights that is some of our hospitals, they had long-standing like barbecue grill days. That was in a recognition in the summertime that we will, even as we get larger and larger, we probably will uphold those grill days because we know that they're extremely important to those communities, and just not losing that sense of, who you are at either the larger level or the more local level.
I love it. Great examples. And a couple of things that have popped up in the chat window. Um, so Samantha said, I love the create heroes inside your own organization. Brittany said, love the 100% club to drive leadership engagement. And for Nicole, and the Stories That Grow program for Cheryl. Judy said, I like the idea of rewarding staff with education. Awesome idea. Vivian recommended the idea, ChatGPT is great for leaders who get stuck with what to say and how to say thanks. 100% agreed. So thank you for calling that out, Vivian. AI can be our friend even when it comes to recognition. Um, so I'd love to shift gears just for a moment and put on my CEO hat. So today we heard how to roll out a recognition program and how impactful it can be. And you can see that Bucketlist Rewards is a key part of Schlegel Village's recognition program. And of course, we are their platform and partner. So if you heard some great ideas today and you're looking for a way to start a recognition program, we'd love to lean in and help out. So Mary, if you wouldn't mind launching the poll, there we go. So you should see that poll up on screen. So if you've heard some great ideas and you're looking for a way to start a recognition program, just go ahead and click yes. I'd like to learn more. Or maybe you have a manual program, it's time consuming, or maybe it's not getting used. And if you want help fixing that, again, just hit yes to that poll. We know that launching a recognition program could be a lot of work, time consuming, and sometimes stressful, and we're happy to alleviate that load. I also want to share just a couple of quick stats on how impactful recognition can be. So at Bucketlist, we provide recognition rewards with results. And on screen, you can see some of the results that we provide. So for example, I know in healthcare, burnout isn't often an issue. Turnover can be a real issue, and we can absolutely improve both those metrics. We've worked with senior homes like Home Instead, and we've been able to help them lower voluntary turnover by more than 40%. We've worked with hospitals like Eli Bloomington, and we've reduced their voluntary turnover from 20% to under 5%. And we played a key role in both of those initiatives. And one reason we've had such a big impact is we've built an employee rewards and recognition program specifically for healthcare called Healthcare Heroes. It's a full enterprise solution. It can be launched with small organizations or large organizations. And then just to wrap up, we wanted to make it super easy to take advantage of implementing a recognition program. So we have a pretty cool exclusive webinar offer. So for the first time ever, we have a risk-free way to test it out. If you're interested in learning more or even trying out a free pilot, we can do a 3-month pilot for up to 10 organizations. And we're even able to fund the rewards for those pilot programs of up to $1,500 in rewards floats. So you can try this thing out for no risks, and we even guarantee your results. And just a quick reminder, we'll be limiting this to 10 spots. So if you're interested in taking part of the webinar offer, just click yes or no to the second question as well. And then with that, why don't we go ahead and close that poll? Thank you so much, Mary. You're a pro. And I'd love to turn it over to our panelists to share just a little bit more information about their wonderful organizations. So Cheryl, maybe you can go first.
Yeah, so Schlegel Villages is a family-owned and operated company that is located in the province of Ontario. We have 18 communities across Ontario. Many of our communities are actual continuums of care. So there's independent assisted living, retirement care, all the way to long-term care. And so we have over 5,000 residents, over 6,500 team members. And we're very proud of the work that we do and the reputation that we have in the sector as kind of being disruptors and innovators. And it's a great, I can't say enough good things. So I'm not being paid to say this, but a great company to support and to work with, caring for seniors.
Cheryl, awesome stories today. Thank you so much for coming on out, and I have no doubt your organization's amazing, especially given some of the stories you've shared today. So thank you so much. Nicole, do you want to share a bit more about UC Health?
Yeah, UCHealth is a Colorado-based health system. As I mentioned before, we're about 37,000 employees, and we span from Pueblo, Colorado in the south, all the way to Cheyenne, Wyoming in the north, and Steamboat Springs up in the mountains, all the way out to Sterling out on the eastern plains of Colorado. So we've got clinics and hospitals, large hospitals, small hospitals, plus a variety of different things in the innovation space, and really anything you can imagine in healthcare, we pretty much have it, or at least have taken a peek at it. So a progressive and innovative organization in Colorado.
Amazing. And again, an organization I'd love to come check out and learn more about. I'm looking at the time. We're right at the top of the hour. So the spirit of recognition, Cheryl, Nicole, masterful job on getting through all the questions today and such good insights. And it's not just me saying that, reading the audience comments, people loved the tactics and tools you shared with them today. And there's lots of good knowledge that was sent out into the universe. And you both lifted people up today. So I don't, as an observer, I don't think we could ask for anything more. So Nicole, thank you. Amazing job. Cheryl, thank you. Amazing job. And with that, I'd love to move to wrap up today's session. So thank you everybody for coming on out. I don't know, Nicole, Cheryl, are any kind of final comments from your side before we say goodbye to our guests? Awesome. Okay. Thanks everybody. You're the best. Have an amazing Tuesday, and we look forward to seeing you at future sessions and future webinars. Have an awesome day, everybody. Thank you.